All right, we are recording. Here we go. I am so excited that you guys are here with me today. Um, I've been looking forward to this workshop for the last couple of weeks, and there's so much good stuff in here. Um, I hope you're excited. I hope that you get so much good information from this and that you find it really worth the money that you spent to be here and the time that you're going to spend to be here. And for that, I just want to say thank you, first of all, for spending the money and taking the time to come and listen to what it is that I have to say, and trusting me to give you that information, but also to really remind you to take a moment to appreciate yourself for showing up today and for doing this for yourself and for your family. Um, it's such a big deal. I'm a little kid, so I'm just going to try and fix myself here. There we go. Um, it's such a big deal, and I think I'll get into my story and who I am in just a minute. But 4 years ago, when I really needed something like this, I probably wouldn't have taken the time or made the investment in a class like this because I would have just thought, I can figure out, I can do it. It's fine. It's no big deal. And I would have kept going. And that is exactly not the way to do it. And so I'm just so grateful for you guys for showing up today, for taking the time for yourself. And let's go. Let's do this. So a little bit about, I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully this works nice and easily for me. I am Steph Pellish. I am a parenting coach, a motherhood coach. Here we go. It looks like it's working. I'm a mom of 4 kids. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter, a friend, a sister, all of the things. And I really have learned over the last couple of years how important it is to support moms and how important it is to get support for myself. And so my experience is that I started as an occupational therapist. I was really interested in working with kids, working with families who had children who had developmental delays, in particular on the autism spectrum, but really I saw kids with a plethora of diagnoses. And through that work, I started in early intervention. And early intervention, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background, there is one-on-one work with the kids, but primarily the goal is to coach the parents so that when I, as a provider, leave, that parent is still able to do those strategies, do those things with their kids, and build it into their routine, build those strategies into their lifestyle. So I'm not just coming for 1 hour a week and whatever I do is done. It's really about building routines that work for the family. And through that work and through my own experience as a mom, I've realized how important it is for the moms to feel good about what they're doing, how important it is to support the moms, how important it is for mom to not lose her identity in order to thrive through the challenges of motherhood. Because honestly, there are always going to be challenges with being a parent. There's always going to be chaos, whether it's back to school, whether it's a sick child, changes at work, difficulties in your marriage or your relationships. There are always things with your parents. Like there are always going to be things going on. And so part of what I want to talk about today with you guys is how to really stay calm when all that chaos is around us. Even though my picture says that I can be president, I have no aspirations to be president. whatsoever. You can find me most often, which I think all of you guys are in my group already, over at Mama, You're Doing Great on Facebook. I love that group. I love supporting that group. I love the content that we're sharing over there and the moms' interactions. So if you're not over there, please join us. I'm on Instagram at Mama, You're Doing Great. You can email me, just my name, stephpellish@gmail. And I want to help moms thrive through motherhood. So let's go. Let's talk about what it is that we're here to talk about. The three things that we're going to talk about today are prioritizing, self care, and connection. And so, through these things, we're really going to cover how to keep ourselves calm, how to keep our families calmer in the chaos of what can be a really busy back to school season. So, the first thing is prioritizing. So, when we talk about prioritizing, first we have to talk about what is most important. What is most important to us? What is most important to our family, our kids? And to do this, I work with my clients on core values. That's one of the first conversations that I have with a client, with a mom, is what are your core values? And so I know you guys have handouts, and I'm not going to be able to, oh, I have it on the next slide. But one of your handouts is actually a list of core values. So you can go ahead and take a look at what that list looks like. There are between 50 and 60 words on there. And there you can Google core values lists. You can find lists of 250 words. You can use the list that I gave you, or any list in between. But one thing that I find with clients, and what I found working with my own life coach on doing core values, is when we narrow those down, when we take those 250 words, bring them down to 20, bring them down to 10, bring them down to 4 or 5 core values, those words that really describe us, who we are, without any of the other stuff. So these aren't your labels like I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a sister. These are the things that I'm trying to find another word besides values, but these are the things that describe you, the way you are, and the way you live your life. And they're not aspirational. They're not things that you want to be. Like, I want to be more fun. I want to be more relaxed and patient with my kids. But those are not the things that are not going to show up as my core values, because those are not the things that make me who I am. These are things that are innately a part of who I am, innately a part of how I show up every day. And so my first assignment for you guys, or the first kind of step for you guys to do, is to take a look at these values, spend time reflecting on them, spend time, if you want to have a conversation with me, I would love to talk to you about them. Spend time with a friend or your husband, a partner, talking about these core values, talking about which ones really make you who you are, maybe why they make you who they are, or why you chose those values. And when we look at these, they're always going to be the same. So our core values are never going to change. That being said, the word might change or the feeling around it might change, but who we are as a person, obviously there are always shifts in life, and big events that can happen that can really drastically change who we are. But for the most part, these core values are really just who we are at that core. And so I would encourage you to find time to reflect on those core values and come down to the 4 or 5 words that really you feel like make you who you are. And why I encourage you to do that, why I say prioritizing those core values. This isn't a workshop to say like, okay, priority is to meal plan and to pack the backpacks the night before and to get the lunches the night before. You guys know those things. You guys know how to do those things already. And so this is more about how and where we're spending our energy and how we want to show up, how we can maintain our calm when all of that chaos is happening outside of us. Um, the other thing about these core values is that they really help us to maintain boundaries. They help us to know when it's easier to say no. Sorry, I'm turning off my share for a second. Um, But so when we know what our core values are, it's easier to make decisions. And I know so many moms, myself included, that we get caught up in this idea of, are we making the right decision? Are we doing the right thing? Are we showing up for our kids in the best way or making the right decision about their schooling, their masks, their vaccines, the teacher that they have, the events that we choose for them or allow them to participate in? There are so many variables right now for school, whether you're going to keep them at home or hybrid or virtual. Those are decisions that we all need to make as parents, and there are no right or wrong answers. And so when we start to judge ourselves or when we start to allow other people's judgment to impact our own decision making, it takes away from the power that we have as a mom to make those decisions. And so when we think about our core values really lend to make decisions. So let's say one of my core values is fun. If I look at my weekend and it's pretty open and I get invited to a party and my core value is fun, I'm going to say, yeah, let's go. Let's figure out how we can get to the party. Let's go socialize. Let's have a lot of fun. Maybe friends are one of my core values. Friendships or being social are one of my core values. So that's an easy decision for me. Let's say for me, another example might be family is a core value. And so I look at my weekend, it's pretty busy. We've got a lot of sports activities. We've got um, we've got some other things going on, family parties or whatever. And we get invited to a neighbor's house in the evening to go do movie and pizza. And I might think like, all right, well, we don't have anything else going on. We'll just go head over. But if my core value is family, then maybe I think about that and think, no, you know what? Our family's really busy this weekend, and I want to connect with my family. Connection might be one of my other core values. I want to connect with my family this weekend, and we're already busy. So, no, we're going to stay home. We're going to stay home and do our own pizza and movie night, and we can connect with you next time. And so, that's kind of like an oversimplification of how we can use those core values, but we can look at them for, do I want my kid to go to school or not this year with the pandemic? What are my values? Can my values help me make that decision so that I know I made the best decision for me and I trusted myself? And when we have that really strong sense of who we are and what it is that we value, it allows that outside noise, that external noise, to quiet down and for us to really listen to our internal voice and listen to our gut, really. Let's see. Let's go back to sharing. And also, guys, so not only is it easier to say no because we now know what our values are, so it helps us to make decisions on yes or no, that's something that I want to do or something that I prioritize. But it's also okay to say no. It gives us power to know that we can say no. You can give yourself that permission. I don't have to say yes every time somebody asks me to do something. I don't have to say yes to being the homeroom mom or sending in a treat this time for the class party. I can say no if my priority is, you know what? A great example right now is my priority this week has been this workshop. I have been putting in a lot of time, a lot of energy into this workshop. And that means that my house isn't really under control. It's not cleaned up. It's not organized the way that I would like it to. I've given the kids a couple times, I've asked them to help and they have a little bit, but I haven't been giving them like the same kind of energy or asking them for the same amount of help because I'm trying to work on this workshop. And so that's a great example of, okay, I've got to let something go because I'm prioritizing this workshop. I'm prioritizing giving you guys this great value and information. And so I'm letting go of the fact that my house doesn't look picture perfect. If you came over, I would just let you know that it is the way it is. I'm not going to apologize for how it looks because it's a decision that I made and I'm okay with that decision. I made that decision knowing that my priority needed to be somewhere else this week. This is just a list. It's actually the same list that you guys have in your handouts of the core values. And then, so when we talk about priorities, we want to look at what is your priority? What are your priorities? And so coming up with your core values can really help with that. But so many moms put themselves at the bottom of the priority list. Mamas, we need to put ourselves at the top. And you know the saying, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first and then put it on someone else. And yes, like that is so true. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. But I also know through experience, it's not as easy to do as it is to say. And even though we might know that's what we're supposed to do in the moment, it feels hard because when we're running in 10 different directions and trying to do all of the things, oh, well, it's so easy to put ourselves on the bottom of that list because there's more and more and more to do. And what I have learned, and it sounds crazy and counterintuitive, but what I have learned is the higher on the priority list that we make ourselves, the more time we have, the more efficient we are, the more productive we are, and the easier it is to get done all of the things. I put all of the things in quotes. And so, we look at the core values to see what is it that makes you you, but I put this list together. This is another thing that I do with some of my clients. And actually, I know a few of you on this call have done it with me, but we look at these 10 areas of your life. We look at these 10 different things as a part of your life to go through and say, where am I doing well? Where am I struggling? What are the things kind of in the middle that are doing all right, but maybe could use a little bit of help? Or maybe the things that are like falling behind a little bit, because we want to make sure that you are feeling good and you are supported in all of these areas. Now, that's not to say that we're going to come in and tackle all of these areas all at once, because that's just way too much, so overwhelming, right? We want to take it step by step and baby steps, slow. My life coach Elena Sanino calls them turtle steps. Nice and slow. We'll get to where we need to go. We know where we're going, but we're going to take slow steps to get there. And so we look at things like health and lifestyle, spirituality, personal growth, marriage and partnership, friends, social aspect, your home, your family dynamics, your support network, your finances, your community. Those are all things that we need to take a look at to make sure that you're really well supported, that you have all the things in place that you need. Because if you are rocking it, girl, you are rocking it in your health and your lifestyle. You're going to the gym every day and you look amazing and your friends are there. And so you've got that friendship, that connection, but your marriage is falling apart and your finances are a mess. Well, that's going to cause so much stress, and it's going to take away from that health and lifestyle. It's going to take away from your friendships and that social piece, because you're not showing up authentically in a way that shows like, hey, this is who I am. Like, my marriage is struggling, my finances are struggling. Are you sharing that? Are you putting so much energy into health and lifestyle because you're avoiding dealing with your marriage or dealing with your finances? I don't know. And so the thing is, like, when we take those bottom pieces and we raise them up, it raises those top pieces. And when we raise those top pieces, it raises those bottom pieces too. And so we can start with one piece. We can start with somewhere in the middle. And what I like to do is just a quick assessment of all of these things. We rate them, and then we put like the things that are working in that area of your life, and then the things that you would really like to see work a little bit better. And one of the things that I find is that the strategies that are working for you in one area, those are the strategies that we adapt and we pull from that area to work in another area. So again, like the health and the lifestyle, right? If you're rocking your fitness, you're going to the gym every day, you're working out, how can we use that in your finances? Maybe there's an app that you can use every day. Maybe there's a budgeting app that you can use every day to look at the number. Maybe there's something that, like, I know there are a ton of like debt tracking sheets on Pinterest. Maybe you need that visual piece to tackle the debt over here. Or maybe we need to schedule some more frequent date nights. You're seeing your friends every day at the gym, but how often are you connecting with your partner? And so we can use those same strategies that are already working for you. You can use those strategies in other areas of your life. But sometimes we get stuck in this isn't working, instead of looking at, okay, what is working? What are the strategies that are already working for me? And how can I take those strategies and use them across the board in my life in order to show up better, in order to show up better as a mom? Because what I have learned the very hard way in this last, I'll say, almost 2 years now, but 2 years, I have learned that when I don't prioritize myself, when I don't make sure that I am supporting myself, when I am feeling overwhelmed and drained, my whole family suffers. My whole family struggles. And of course, there are always going to be days that aren't great. Of course, there are always going to be days that we struggle, and that's okay. That's life. That's part of this journey that we're all on. But the better I can support myself, the more tools and the more strategies that I have to support myself, the better I can show up for my kids, the better I can show up for my husband, the better I can show up for my community. And when I'm showing up better for all of them, it then in turn makes me feel better. It makes me feel like I'm able to give back without draining myself. Again, I'm going to go to another metaphor, but it's that like empty vase, right? Like we're pouring from an empty cup, we're giving everybody everything we have. And then at some point we tip over and shatter. And I've been there. I have shattered because I was not giving myself anything. And in fact, at one point, I had a relationship with a friend, and I would show up feeling really overwhelmed, feeling not great. And I would show up and I would get one-upped on my I would I would tell her all of the things, and then she would tell me all of her things, and it felt like I was being one-upped, but in the moment, I didn't know that. Now later, I understand that's what was happening, and so what I would do was I would leave, and I would try and do something nice for her, or before I would go over, I would, like, make sure I had a cup of coffee for her, or would pick up lunch for her, or I would do something like that for her, which of course, like, that's a great thing. But every time I did those things, I would think, "Well, why doesn't she ever do that for me? Why doesn't anybody else do this for me? Why am I always doing it for someone else?" And what took me a long time to realize is because I wasn't doing that for myself. I was doing that out of resentment. I was doing it. I had nothing else to give, but I saw other people needed more. So I just gave them everything I had. But really, it just made me feel worse. It drained me. And now I have friendships that I can show up and say, "Hey, I'm not having a good day." And they can say, "Oh, me neither." But when I leave, I don't feel this need to make them feel better. It's a more equal relationship where we're both sharing our struggles, but without judgment and without trying to one up the other. And last week I had a conversation with a girlfriend of mine and I said, "Listen, I just need to get something off my chest. I just need to complain for a few minutes." And she listened without judgment. And I left feeling so much better and fulfilled in that friendship. And, that's kind of what made me think back to this other relationship that I had. And I thought, what a difference. Whereas before I might have felt good in the moment because I shared with somebody, but then I didn't really feel like I felt better. And, so it's so important to give ourselves what we need. And in a moment, I'm going to talk about love languages. But when we know our own love language and we can show up for ourselves in our own love language and give that to ourselves first, it's so much easier and feels so much better and so much more in alignment for us to show up for others in that way. And so when we're showing up for ourselves first, and then our kids come home from school and they've had a really rough day, we can be there for them. We can listen to what they need. We can help them problem solve what it is that they need to do. When our husband comes home or our partner comes home and says, "Work's terrible right now. Like, I really don't think, like, it's really hard to be there." We can be in a place of support instead of, "Oh no." We get into the dread of, "Oh no, he's going to leave his job. Oh no, she's going to leave her job. What are we going to do?" And when we're feeling stressed, it's so much easier to catastrophize everything. Is that the right word? Am I saying that correctly? Whereas when we're feeling good, we're in a place of hearing and receiving and feeling more open to what are the other possibilities. "Okay, honey, I hear you. You had a bad day at work. Is there something I can do? I really took care of myself today, so now I have extra energy to show up for you in the way that you might need." And that might just be all that they need. Maybe they just had a bad day. They needed somebody to listen, or maybe they need somebody to problem solve. Um, and so, I'm going to get into this third piece. And this third piece is really connection. And in back to school, it's funny because for my family, our busiest season of the year is fall. There's a lot of chaos in the fall. There are a lot of activities and events and back to school. And so we tend to see a lot of people all of the time. And a lot of times it's the same people because we're going to the same activities, but it's easy to do the small talk. It's easy to talk to this person for 5 minutes, talk to that person for 5 minutes. and just keep going. And yep, I did my socialization. Yep, 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 yep. And that's a really quick way to get drained from our energy. And it's a really quick way, especially for people who are introverts, to just feel completely wiped out. And so it's really important to have connection, have that base of connection with yourself, like we already talked about the core values, the self care, um, and then the love languages. That is something that I've talked about in my group before. And, I've got to go back and revisit that again. But when we show up for ourselves, so let me just quick review the five love languages. So Gary Chapman came up with this idea. He was seeing marriages struggle, and he realized that every every person has a different way that they give and receive love. And so he calls them a love language. And he wrote this book in order to help husbands and wives in particular meet each other's needs and understand how their partner was trying to meet their needs. And so there are five of them, and I always name four and then have to think about the fifth. So let's see if I can do these. But the five are physical touch, gifts, acts of service, quality time, and words of affirmation. All five. How about that? And so when we show up in those ways for ourselves, like my love language is my primary love language is words of affirmation. And so things that I can do for myself is change the way that I talk to myself, change the way that my internal dialogue is going through all of the things that I should or need to do, and be more encouraging, being more supportive and compassionate and graceful with myself. Um, I can write myself notes, I can write myself letters to find later, which is always a fun surprise because off topic for a moment, but if you guys have ever written yourself a note or a letter and then gone back and read it like 3 months later, I never remember what I wrote ever. So, I mean, I barely remember when I write in a birthday card what I wrote the next day. So maybe that's not so surprising. But anyway, so when we show up and we're looking for that connection with ourselves, we're then better to able to show up with for our spouse or our partner. We have to be intentional. Um, I missed that point. I wanted to bring that point up when I talked about prioritizing too, about intentionality. Like we can say like, this is our core value, like fun is our core value. So we're just going to go to every birthday party. No, you guys, we need to be intentional with our choices. We need to look at what it is that we're doing and why we're making those decisions. And so when we put intention behind them, that's what really puts them into alignment. And so when we're looking at our relationship and our connection with our spouse or our partner, again, knowing our partner's five love languages. Dr. Chapman has a quiz, the five love languages.com. It's a couple minutes. You could take a quiz. You could send it to your partner. They can see your results. You can ask them for their results. My husband hates things like this, but he's done the quiz and he sent me his results. So maybe they'll do it too. Or sometimes you can just read through them and know which one your partner is. But being intentional with your schedule with your partner, being intentional with date nights, being intentional with scheduling activities. So, we have four kids. One is not yet in activities, and poor Colby, she probably won't have any activities until she's in college. Everybody else's schedule will override hers. But we've got three other kids who are in 2, 3 activities after school. And so that means my husband and I are constantly, you're here, I'm there. You go here, you go there. I'll drop him off, you pick him up. And last year, what we found really helped us was we do divide and conquer. We definitely divide and conquer, but we also try and meet up. So whereas 3 years ago, I may have stayed home with anybody who wasn't going to that activity, we now both go. and we take Colby with us. We walk. The other two kids might play on the playground or might play basketball, or, now they might be out of neighbors, or Izzy sometimes stays home. And so we have a little bit of that flexibility where we can both go to the event, we can both go to the activity, but we make sure that when we both go, we're using that opportunity to connect. So, we're not being rude. We're not, like, sometimes it means connecting with the other people that are there, but a lot of times it means that he and I are going for a walk. That's our time. We've got one kid at practice, or we've dropped one kid off one place. Now we're going somewhere else. But we really try to both be at the activities together as often as possible. And that has done a lot for our relationship, because one of the things that I would find is when my husband Greg would take the kids to the activities and I was at home, well, I was home all day. And now I'm still at home with some of the kids. And so I would start to feel resentful that he left, or he would get home and then I would be running out the door. And so he would feel resentful that I just left, which really just took from both of us, right? And instead of like having a conversation about how can we better support each other so that the one who's staying home doesn't feel like they're getting the short end of the stick. And it doesn't always work. Sometimes one of us goes and the other goes, and we use carpools too, because that's what we need to do. But so, connecting with your spouse, building in that time, building in those date nights, even if it's during kids practice, building that connection, being intentional with it when the kids go to bed, really, like, maybe once a week, keeping the TV off and connecting with each other, even though it feels like we're zoning out and we're like refueling when we're watching TV, a lot of times it doesn't really give us the fuel that we need. It doesn't really fill us up. Um, and so Gary Chapman wrote the love languages for husbands and wives, but he then also wrote the five love languages for kids. And, you know, it's a little bit easier maybe to figure out your kids' love language, um, just because kids are much more verbal and much more willing to tell you what it is that they need than our spouses are sometimes. Maybe in your experience, definitely in my experience. Um, but so using those love languages for our kids, and there is a quiz on the website, the Five Love Languages website too, that you can take to figure out what your kids' love language is. And so when we know what our kids' love language is, guys, this is such a powerful thing. This is such good information, because all our kids want to know is that they are loved. That's all they want. They want to know that they're loved and that they're safe. And when one of my kids is having a tantrum, it is challenging to be the calm in that storm. But if I can look at what is the child who's having a tantrum right now, what is their love language? What is the way that they are going to most respond to me? Because a lot of times they're having a tantrum because usually they're overtired, but they're upset. They're feeling unloved, and then it gets more and more dramatic as the tantrum goes on. At least, again, in my house, maybe it's different in your house, but we really want to be mindful of how can we best show our kids love. And so whether that's maybe they need a hug in those moments, maybe they need that physical touch, or maybe they need to be reminded, you know what? I hear you. I see that you're having a tantrum. I love you anyway. I love you even though you're yelling at me and I don't like your behavior. I still love you. That would be words of affirmation. Um, Gifts I'd have to think about a little bit more for a tantrum. Maybe it would just be a drink of water or a snack, something that isn't necessarily like a present, but just something that you're giving them. Acts of service. Acts of service is doing something for them. So maybe you set up a cozy corner or turn on some music for them, or maybe you help them to put away the laundry that they're crying about putting away. Um, and then, oh, you guys, I got to four, and now here I am with the fifth one. I did physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, gifts, and quality time. Quality time. Sitting down and talking to them, sitting down and just sitting quietly with them, holding them. We don't just have to use the one love language. We can use all five. And actually, kids are going to respond to the more love that we give them. And when we can show them in a variety of ways, it allows them to really feel that overall. Um, I talked about how busy the fall is going to be for our family. When you have young kids, or when you have kids that are going into this busy season, we have to be really mindful of how busy it is for them. And then we're also getting into, some kids are going to school for the first time, or with going from virtual back in person, some kids haven't been in person all day in school for over a year and a half. And so we want to be really mindful, especially that first week of school, that we are giving them grace. We are helping them to manage their energy, maybe canceling some things that we normally would have done in the evening or normally would do during the week, but giving them some extra time to adjust to their schedule. We want to check in with them. How's school? And at night, how was your evening? How are you feeling? Are you feeling tired? Was today too much? And you've got to kind of find the language that works for your kids. But checking in with them, making sure that they're not overscheduled. Like if you have a kid going into kindergarten for the first time, all day school, and they soccer practice 2 nights a week, maybe we skip soccer practice this week, or maybe we only go once. Really being mindful of, again, that priority. We want our kids to show up the best. And when we're overextending them, when we're filling up their schedule, it's too much. And so then they can't show up as their best selves, right? Because they're feeling that chaos. They're feeling like we have all this stuff going on. And so this is where sometimes less is more, and really minding your schedule, minding how many practices they're going to or how many things that they have going on, but being intentional, really being intentional about which activities you're saying no to. There are some kids who are like, I don't want to go to this practice. I don't want to go to that practice. And they just don't ever want to go to anything, right? But then when they get there, they feel good about it. So really being intentional about how you help the kids to choose. And then just making sure that you're maintaining connection with your friends, checking in with your kid's teacher. Hey, I'm so-and-so's mom. I just wanted to introduce myself. Hope we have a great year. Is there anything that you need? Coworkers, clients, your community. All of those connections are so important, even in the busy time. And, it's easy to, like I said before, in the fall, we tend to see the same people over and over again. And some of the people that we see in the summer, we lose touch with. And we've had conversations with those people saying like, oh, we're going into fall. We'll see you in a few months. But checking in, trying to maintain those connections can be so important. Thinking there was one more thing in there that I kind of wanted to, this covers it. All right. So the first week of school, a couple of you guys, your kids have already started school. A couple of you guys, your kids are going back this week. These are just some of my best tips for the first week of school. Setting your priorities. What are your priorities, guys? Not only yours, but your families. We talked about those core values. It might be something that you sit down as a family and talk about, what are your family's core values, or what are yours and your husband's core values? And it doesn't have to be a 3 hour long exercise. It can be one night at dinner. Hey, everybody, look at these couple of words. Which words do you think describes our family, and why? Um, but you can take one of the things that we'll do this year, and we've done in the past couple of years, is we do a family dinner. We have family dinner every night. We eat as a family every night. And before school starts, we talk about a few things. We talk about what are the expectations for the year in school? What do my kids want to achieve in school? How do they want to show up in school this year? What classes are they hoping to do well in, or maybe to get better at? Um, what kind of friend do they want to be at school? And then at home, some families, the expectations of cleaning up and chores that need to be done and the things that are being done at home decrease with going back to school because there's just less time. And then also with extracurricular. Okay, you're showing up this year for school, and there are a lot of things with academics. We're going to have homework. And now we have, you've got 3 activities. Like, how many activities do we want to do this year? What's our expectation for that? Are we going to do, my kids run cross country. Cross country has a lot of practices and is a lot of time. But we kind of use that as supplemental to other things. We don't go to every practice. We don't go to every meet. We use it to help the kids to have training and to, cross train for the other activities. So we go to that when we don't have other things to do and we feel like the kids can handle it. And that might mean one kid goes, that might mean two, or it might mean three kids go. I mentioned this before, reaching out to connect with the teacher. Last week, our local school started school, and it was interesting. This is the first year that I've seen this, and I really appreciated it. And maybe you guys will too. But I saw a lot of posts saying, my child has so and so, because our public school sends out teachers, they don't send out class lists. And so everybody then posts on Facebook and says, my kid has Mrs. Smith. And so there were a lot of posts on Facebook saying, my kid has Mrs. Smith. Who here has already had Mrs. Smith? What are your thoughts? And I saw a lot of responses saying, it's not really fair to review a teacher, especially on social media like that, because what if Mrs. Smith reached out to your kids' 3 previous teachers, or 2 previous teachers, or one really bad previous teacher that they didn't have a good relationship with, and said, oh, I have Johnny Woods this year. What did you think of him? And the teacher said, oh, he was the most challenging kid in my class. He never did any of his homework and whatever, right? Like, that's not fair. It's not fair to come in with an expectation. Now, that being said, of course, there are going to be teachers who have reputations for a reason and kids who have reputations for a reason, but coming into it with an open mind and connecting with the teacher is going to really allow for you to, set the teacher up. Like, oh, you know what? Johnny's mom reached out to me. Maybe he'll do better this year. Making sure that you have all of the organization of all the supplies and materials. And like I said in the beginning, you guys, like packing the backpacks the night before, making the lunches the night before, delegating, having the kids make their own lunches, having the kids make sure that their backpacks are ready to go, and then allowing them to deal with the consequence if those things aren't ready. So when you get a phone call from school and they say, hey, Johnny forgot his lunchbox, or Johnny forgot his blue folder, you know what? Johnny was supposed to take those today, and I can't bring it in because that was his responsibility. I guess we're going to have to figure out something else. And that allows for our kids to learn to trust themselves. When we're not doing for them and when we're not constantly checking up on them, kids learn to not only be more independent and to take responsibility, but they learn to trust themselves. They learn to trust that they are capable of doing those things. And what is more empowering than knowing that you can do something? So, delegating that organization to your kids, again, age appropriate, developmentally appropriate, within your family's expectations and within reason. Um, but what a gift that you could give to your kids. And then downtime. Guys, schedule your downtime for that first week of school. 6 o'clock on Friday, we are ordering pizza and we are watching a movie with the family. That is that. That is going to happen. Nothing's going to change that. That's our family plan for the first week of school. Um, Maybe yours looks a little different. Maybe it happens on Saturday. Maybe it happens throughout the week. But make sure that you're scheduling intentional downtime and making sure that you're scheduling the connection with your family, making sure that you're checking in and prioritizing yourself, your self care throughout this busy season, throughout this time of what can be chaotic. And I saw this quote and I just really wanted to share it with you because it says, "You do not have to make your children into wonderful people. You just have to remind them that they are wonderful people. If you do this consistently from the day they are born, they will believe it more easily. Mama, you are a wonderful person. If you remind yourself consistently every day how great you are, you will believe it more easily. The things that you are doing, the way that you are showing up for your family, you are doing such an amazing job." And when you believe that and you stop trying to prove that, it changes everything. That energy shift of taking the focus of trying to prove yourself and prove that you can do all of the things and show up and show up and show up, to just showing up authentically as yourself in the best way that you can, is how we maintain that calm, is how we maintain everything that we need in order to show up better for everyone else. And so that is the best advice I have for you guys. That is the best thing that I can leave you with. Um, if you would like more support, if you want to talk and have a conversation about core values, if you want to have a conversation about those 10 areas that I talked about that really support you or where you need more support, reach out. You can find me in my DMs on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me in my email, stephpellish@gmail.com. You can respond to, you'll get another email with resources. You can respond to that. But please reach out. I am excited to have a couple one-on-one spots that I'm looking to fill with some mamas for this fall, but I'm also looking to do a small group. And this group, part of this group is going to be looking at the core values. It's going to be looking at those 10 areas of our lives and breaking it down. And I don't want you to feel overwhelmed about, oh, I don't want to share these things in a group. It's going to be content. You're going to get content. It's going to be synchronous so you can kind of consume the content. And then there's going to be discussion. There's going to be some one-on-one support inside of that. There's going to be group discussion. So like building this community is so important to me, because when you hear someone else is struggling with the same things that you are, it allows us to realize that we're not alone. And when you hear someone else has struggled and someone else is now in a different place, it allows you to know that you can get there. And if you are doing great in one of these areas, what an amazing gift it would be to tell those moms, to share with our community why you do so well in that area, what you did or what you continue to do in order to thrive in that area of being a woman, of being yourself. And so I would love to have you join me. I would love to have you reach out. I would love to answer any questions that you guys have, get any feedback. But thank you so much for showing up today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today and for taking the time for yourself to do this. And you guys, I'm so excited. I am so excited about where this community and where the Thriving Through Motherhood is going, because Mama, I just want you to thrive. I want you to feel so good inside. I want you to know that you're showing up the best that you can because you've got the best support that you could ever imagine. Thank you guys so much.